Welcome to the UNSECURITY podcast. Each week, Evan and Brad give an inside look at current information security news, breaches, best practices, and other things you should know to improve your information security. Here are your hosts, FRSecure's Evan Francine and Brad Nye.
All right, welcome to the UNSECURITY podcast. This is episode 43. I was going to do some sort of non-standard opening this time. This is kind of non-standard now that I just said it's non-standard.
I'll chime in before it says I'm supposed to. So now it's non-standard.
We're all thrown off now. All right. Well, this is episode 43. I'm Evan Francine. The date is sometime in late August because we're actually recording the Friday before Labor Day because Labor Day is a day when you and I are not going to work. We're going to put things down. No, you got to do it. Put it down. One day. Just do it.
We'll maybe. We'll see.
We'll talk about why that may not be possible for Brad. But I am Evan Francine, and joining me is my partner in crime, Mr. Brad Nye. Brad's already said sort of hello.
Yes, but I'll say it again formally. Hello, Evan.
Well, and you'll notice in the show notes that all throughout Brad does Brad. So You're going to have to do Brad the whole show.
That'll be interesting because I think our whole IR team is getting a little punchy. So this could be fun.
I know. Well, and that's what happens when you record a podcast too on a Friday. I was traveling to, Wednesday, Thursday in New Jersey, come back this morning and, 6 back-to-back meetings and I'm ready to cut bait on this week. All right. But we do have a packed show. These show notes were actually put together in about 15 minutes. We didn't plan as well as we normally do, but I think we're going to have a great show anyway. So stick with us.
I like how you lead people to believe we plan.
It's true.
I appreciate that.
I know, right? Well, come on.
We're opening the curtain.
Yeah, stop that.
Oh, sorry.
All right. But we do have a packed show. We're recording, like I said, we're recording the episode on Friday. Monday is Labor Day. I can't believe we're at this point where summer is already over.
This year's been flying by.
I know.
It's crazy.
What the hell? My daughter went back to school. I only have one daughter still in school. You have a couple. Not daughter. Well, you do have a couple daughters and a son. Who started high school. I know, man. I look at pictures of her, 5-6 years ago. It's like, what the hell happened?
I will say I saw her a couple weeks ago walking and from behind across the keeps. I was like, who is? I didn't recognize. I thought it was an employee. She's gotten so tall.
I know. She is tall. I don't know where she got her tallness from. You're tall.
Yeah.
I'm not. I'm 6 foot. I'm kind of
above average.
Anyway, summer's over. We are going into Labor Day weekend. Brad, you got any plans this weekend?
Got a cookout with some friends on Sunday, but hopefully some relaxation. We'll see.
God, I hope so too. All right. What am I doing this weekend? I'm going to loading up the camper and heading to Apple River Family Campground.
Nice. That'd be fun.
Yeah, it will be fun. My wife doesn't believe that I'm not going to be working as well because when you travel for a couple of days on a client site, everything stacks up.
Everything gets thrown off, yeah.
My task list right now is at 71. I have 71 things on my task list.
I was telling somebody how many, I clean out my mailbox at the start of each year, just put it into a folder for a previous year.
Yeah.
And just how many emails I've gotten and how many I currently have that are unread that it's like.
Right.
Yeah. I'm embarrassed by it. But
when I think
and I stay on top of things. It's nuts how much is just going. Anyway.
Well, I wonder if we're not atypical of other security people. I mean, we're all swamped. I mean, if you're trying to make a difference in the world, as a security person, you're swamped.
Yeah. Yeah. I think a lot of it is of my unread ones are in chains where I've read the last email and I just don't clean up my mailbox.
Mm-hmm. Well, and the same thing happens even with our salespeople, right? Yesterday, the emails, I was watching the emails as I was getting off the plane, and Alex, one of our salespeople on the FRSecure side, replies to an email, sorry, I was at a soccer game, and he replies to the client, and you're like, oh, I already replied to the client. He's like, oh, I guess they got 2 emails.
It happens.
Everybody's busy, and we're not even in fourth quarter yet. Fourth quarter is traditionally the one quarter where we're just slammed.
So I'm going to now spend the weekend crying in the corner.
No.
I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
There'll be a payoff at the end of all this. All right. So hopefully our listeners, by the time they listen to this, they had an enjoyable Labor Day weekend. Hopefully they got, they were able to put work away, rest, spend some time with their families. Mm-hmm. We get so wrapped up in our work all the time. I'm guilty of it. I know you are, mm-hmm. that we forget sometimes what really matters. And what really matters is your spiritual life, your family life. That stuff comes before this work stuff.
Yep.
So
keep
that in check.
Yeah, kids grow so fast.
Yeah. Well, and that's one piece of advice I would give any security person. It's so easy to get burned out,
mm-hmm.
And if you don't have some checks and balances in place, you're going to find yourself in a bad spot.
Yep.
So keep that in check. Hopefully you had a good weekend. Back to school, back to the grind. And speaking of back to the grind, we're going to talk about a topic that always seems to be something we're talking about. Right? We're going to talk about incident response again, because we have more lessons to learn. Right? Not we do, and certainly our clients do. So let's share some of that with our listeners, but let's try to keep it short. We have other things mm-hmm. we want to talk about, and I think people are probably getting. Do you think they're getting tired of incident response talk?
I think I don't know. The story. Nobody seems to get tired of the stories.
Yeah.
About what we're finding. I think if we keep,
if we were just doing some hypothetical stuff,
right?
Yeah. So this is a real story, Brad. And an entire incident response team, and I've been pulled in a couple times just to kind of keep me in the loop of things.
You're a good sanity check because once you start getting deep into it, so I'll say it right from a team perspective. Since it's been about 2 weeks, 15th or so, I think is when it started. Yeah. We've put in over 250 hours as a team.
Yeah,
and that's just on this one. So your eyes start to cross a little.
Mm-hmm.
You're like, all right, wait. And so having, you have to pull in and do that sanity check because you're fresher and you're not like...
I'm not in the weeds.
And it's really helpful. So
good.
I do appreciate you doing that.
Well, I appreciate you guys bringing me in. It's good to still keep in touch with sort of reality with what you guys are going through. And it does bring back memories. I mean, I shared with the team on Wednesday night when we were going through, I'm like, the last time I actually went through firewall logs, like in detail, was a PIX 520. And it was all text, we had floppy.
Yeah.
It's been a long time. So it's really cool to see that. But the one thing that's true, the fundamentals are still the same. IP version 4 is still IP version 4.
Mm-hmm.
So
have the right logging levels turned on, regardless of what you're using. Yeah.
And save those logs. My God. All right. So what are some of the recent lessons? So this week has been this one incident response. And for people that may not remember, this is an incident response that started off with emails being sent from one of their mailboxes, and they weren't sure why. We originally suspected...
It was brute force. That's what it was. This was the brute force one.
That's right. This wasn't even the emails out.
Right. The people were having trouble logging in. We thought it was...
They were getting locked out?
They were getting DDoS, basically, from a brute force. There were tens of thousands of failed logins.
That's right.
So it started with that. And it's now moved to... That just was something else that kind of... They were kind of lucky that happened.
Right.
To catch what's really going on.
And so, and I remember because this is a good-sized organization.
Yep.
And the CIO is a friend of mine, so he had called me, and I triaged it in the truck coming back from St. Cloud, Minnesota. And I thought, this happens all the time. And we always see scans and attempt to,
Not like this. This is pretty gnarly.
So I sort of blew it off, and that was my lesson learned, as I had made an assumption out of the gate. But thank God the client wanted more answers and
mm-hmm.
engaged you and the team.
Yep.
And now we found ourselves in this complete compromise. I mean, what's not compromised here?
No, Not all the workstations yet.
But they could be, right?
No. How about this? Everything we have endpoint monitoring on at this point with the tools we're using, we know.
Okay.
Unfortunately, they don't know everything that they have.
Right. And we talked about this last week, and one of our listeners had commented on, well, why don't you just whitelist? It's like, well, we sort of can't because this is rooted. Mm-hmm. And so our whitelists were ineffective.
So the other thing we found is that the attackers are using fileless attacks, injecting malicious code into legitimate Windows processes.
Right.
So even if you whitelist the process, it's not stopping anything. It's using like vCISOs and Rep Manager, a couple other things.
Great.
So, yeah.
So the latest lessons are we didn't get the client wasn't able to get us firewall logs until just this week. Mm-hmm. And when we look at the firewall logs, there wasn't really sufficient information there for one.
Well, it was. Yeah, we're still trying to comb through them.
Yeah. Did we ever get the egress logs? Are there any?
They're supposed to be the same, so we'll have to go back and look at that. They're not a really clean format, thanks to proprietary logging. Thanks, guys. Mm-hmm. Who needs open source for anybody or standardization? Anyway, so from a lessons learned, the biggest probably a handful of things I can think of off the top of my head. Do internal, external vulnerability scanning. This could have been stopped or really mitigated if they'd done some external scans originally, because we found it immediately in the scans. Some of the major points. PowerShell logging, turn it on. Log them all to a central location. We would have, if they had that turned on, we would have found this malicious PowerShell running much faster. Just whatever, use an open source tool, but aggregate your logs. Don't store them locally on the devices.
Right.
If you can, those three things alone would have made
a world of difference.
Just a huge amount of difference.
And so those are sort of basic things that everybody should be doing, right?
Right. No, it's not hard stuff. You just have to do it. And
I agree, with all of that. Certainly the PowerShell logging, I think a lot of people are running without that
it's not turned on by default by Microsoft, so nobody thinks to do it.
Yeah. So if you're listening and you're running a Microsoft environment, turn that on now.
Yep.
Go ahead and pause the podcast and come back when you're
done. You can send it to a, network location and have it. That's all you got to do.
Right. Yeah, and start there before even diving, head first into a SIM solution, right?
Oh, that's an easy thing you can do at no cost.
Yeah.
Group policy, done.
So other things that I've sort of noticed in just in my peripheral view of this, one of them sort of came up this morning, is, and we stressed this at, one of the first ones.
I know where you're going.
Yeah. One of the first time, we always stress communications and how important internal and external communications are, keeping everybody in the loop that should be in the loop. Because this morning I got a text and you got a text saying our Exchange server is down.
Yeah.
It's like, oh God, what? Well, he comes to find out that an admin who didn't tell anybody
made a change
in the middle of the night last night decided to expand the database on the Exchange server or something.
Expand the disk. It was the drive was running out of space or something, or it was getting low.
And took the Exchange server down. Right. And then they couldn't get it back up for whatever reason.
Well, because we put block on all fileless PowerShell because we identified that as a method of spread. So when Microsoft support tried to run PowerShell, they couldn't because we were blocking it.
Oh God.
And they spent, I guess, hours trying to figure this out. And we got in, we're like, what? Well, yeah, no, it's not going to work because we're blocking it.
Yeah. So just the crappy communication. So this admin who knew that we're in the middle of this incident response.
He's been involved.
Yeah. So that wasted a whole bunch of hours. And when you're doing an incident response, you really try not to waste hours.
Oh, no.
Hours are expensive.
Yeah. And from our side, right, we don't we're very careful about doing that. We don't want to take advantage of the situation. And when something like this happens and it sets all of us back, we don't have a choice.
Right.
It's not the right use of that time. But
no.
You don't have a choice. You don't have a choice.
Yeah, and we get that, and so we get that text, and we're all like, "Okay, all hands on deck. What's going on?"
Right.
Well, okay, what? So yeah, waste of time, waste of money.
Was it the double face palm?
Right.
Yeah, fair.
And just because an admin who knows the process doesn't follow process.
Right.
And if you have admins who just will not follow process, then they're not.
Yeah.
You need to. They can't be there anymore.
I mean, we're looking at they're still down on their exchange as far as I know.
Really?
It's been over 12 hours at this point. I don't think it's back up yet.
Okay. And that's not our.
That's nothing we can do.
Okay.
We just put the endpoint agent into a monitor and fingers crossed nothing hits it.
Damn. All right. So there's some lessons. So
be proactive, please.
Well, and just basic, right? I mean, if you have change control process, follow change control process.
Yep.
If you turn on PowerShell logging, do vulnerability scans on a regular basis, and actually look at the results.
Yes. Yeah, don't just do it and set it aside.
Yeah, don't do it. Check the box. And that's one thing that I actually busted. Didn't bust them, but I'm the vCISO for a large organization, and that was one of the things that I found our team doing was you need to review these.
See, I always did. We just did automated tickets for all that stuff. Any of those routine things that needed to be done. And I actually had it happen where generator check. We needed it, and there was like no gas, no diesel in it.
Oops.
And so we went back, and
without testing it, you wouldn't have known until you had a disaster, right?
But no, it was like we had like an eighth of a tank of fuel when we needed it. Oh. So we went back and looked at the tickets, and someone was filling it out. Check. Here's what the levels were.
They didn't actually do it.
And apparently they weren't doing it.
Oh, boy.
So, but it's accountability too, right? At that point, you have to do it.
Well, I would assume that there's going to be some accountability in this incident. At some point.
Yeah.
Right.
I would be stunned.
We're not going to speculate.
No. I would be surprised if there was yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway.
Yeah. Well, and so, okay, so that's kind of where we're at with this current incident. Just incident management in general. I was writing the presentation for the Hacks and Hops, our event coming up on September 19th at the U.S. Bank Stadium, where I'm giving the opening talk, but then we have this awesome panel. Right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Right.
I'm really looking forward to this.
I am too. We have a cyber insurance expert from Lockton there, Chris Roberts. And if you don't know who that is, just look up Chris Roberts and airplane. Find something. And we have JD Hansen, the CISO for Code 42, and then we have Mark Lanterman, who's one of my favorite kind of forensic experts on that panel. But as I was writing this presentation, I realized how really without an incident management process, you're negligent.
Oh, yeah.
If you follow the logic, and then I found this study by IBM that says 77% of organizations. So I interpret that being the logical kind of guy I am, that 77% of organizations then are negligent, in my opinion.
I would not argue that from an incident response perspective and seeing what we've seen. Yeah.
Right. So
well, that's not true. Most of them say, well, we have a plan. It's call insurance.
Yeah. Right. Or they have a plan where they took the plan, found a template online, and changed the name, and
slapped a logo on it and grid.
Yeah. So incident management is not a checkbox. It's not about having a plan. It's about operationalizing the processes for incident response.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll give you an example, like the vCISO, client that I'm working with now. the only one really that I do work with. There's events and incidents, right? So defining what an event is and what an incident is. And I'd like to keep it simple. To me, an incident is just an event with a negative consequence.
Yep.
Right? And so every event that has a negative consequence, what do we do with it? How do we identify it? How do we triage it? Because if you look at this incident that we're talking about today, this major, impactful, huge incident is actually a collection of smaller incidents that happened along the way that nobody noticed or responded to. So before you get to this catastrophic, oh my God, and very expensive, right? I'm talking $250,000, $500,000. Had you operationalized your incident management capabilities, you would have identified other incidents along the way and kept the cost down, and the disruption probably eliminated.
I would agree. Yeah.
So it's not just having an incident, response plan.
No, it's
got to be part of your operations.
Yeah. Yeah. You can't just say we've got one. It's over on the shelf.
Right.
Everybody has to understand what is their role and responsibility in the plan.
Right.
Including not just IT staff or your IR team. Everyday employees need to know.
Right.
They have roles and responsibilities, and I think people are don't think about that a lot.
Yeah,
and that part gets overlooked, and that's your first line.
It is absolutely, and you hear companies say, well, yeah, we got an incident response plan, and you look at it and you can see that it's completely dysfunctional. This is not a plan that's going to work here,
right?
And then you say, well, how do you use this plan? And they usually say, well, we test it once a year because that's what the checkbox says.
Right.
Well, incident response plans are meant to be tested continuously.
They're
not tested once a year. You may test a high severity or
like
critical severity
like a
incident.
True tabletop once a year, right? Where you really pull everybody in.
Yeah, it's like a critical one. You just simulate that. But really, you should be testing your incident response plan continuously. It's part of your business.
Yeah. Yeah. Your IR, whoever's responsible, the commander, manager, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
Right? Anytime anything, there should constant lessons learned.
Right.
A constant update of the plan, constantly just improving it. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. So lots of lessons learned. I think you covered 3 or 4. I covered a few there. There's some good nuggets there, hopefully, for people to improve their own capabilities. Because truly, on the one side, we don't mind the revenue, but on the other side, we hate that people suffer because they didn't plan well.
I'd rather help them be proactive and have that lower revenue than watch them go through this. Because, they're good people working really hard that are just...
They're suffering.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not fun to watch that. No, the actual threat hunting and pulling stuff apart, I won't lie, that is fun. But
I'll do that in a lab.
Yeah, I'd rather I'd rather be able to do that off to the side and not know there's probably going to be some job loss and all the other negative side, consequences to us. So
yeah. Anyway. All right. So moving on, a topic came up this week when I was talking with an investor, because, I've been talking with investors now on Security Studio. And he asked, the term vCISO came up. And I think it's sort of an overused term in our industry. So he asked, what is a vCISO? And I thought, we just kind of take things for granted. Like everybody knows what a vCISO is.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I figured we'd talk about that.
This will be interesting. So, like you said, I got these notes 10 minutes before. So this will be good. I didn't get a chance to prep. So let's see how close we are on our
I'm sure we're
our
really
definition.
Close. Come on. We've worked together for a while now. All right. So let's discuss and be clear on what a vCISO is, and what they do. And then let's discuss some things like, what makes a good vCISO, what makes a bad vCISO. So first, defining what a vCISO is. Well, what it stands for, right? Virtual Chief Information Security Officer. So what it is a fractional, right? It's not a full-time employee that works for the company. It's a consultant that serves as the company's sort of de facto CISO. Yep. That's what a vCISO is. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I like to describe it. We're there to provide strategic guidance, high-level strategic forward-looking, and then tactical response when appropriate.
Right.
But that tactical should be pretty limited. You wouldn't be paying a true CISO to look through logs, right? You'd be telling, more strategic guidance. And
yeah, I think that's exactly right. So another question then is, why is there a need for vCISOs? Why is this a thing?
We've talked about it. There's a huge shortage of talent, but also when we kind of are our sweet spot of company size, they can't justify a full-time the salary demanded or needed by those, and then honestly a lot of times they don't have the work to justify a full-time.
Right.
If you're looking at anywhere from our smallest is 4 employees.
Yeah.
And then I think the average customer base right now is 250 to 400 range of employees, right in that range. So decent sized companies that have good IT staff, they just they can't justify a CISO. And even if they hire one, it's just somebody that's going to leave for more money as soon as they get the job, right? So
potentially, yeah, that's true.
So I think, why do we need them? Because there's a huge gap out there of companies that need that guidance and that expertise versus who can justify the full-time expense associated with it.
Yeah. Well, one thing I know is wherever there's a gap, it gets filled, right? Yeah. So there is a gap, and so then it gets filled. It gets filled with companies who provide vCISO services. And I don't want to badmouth any company because I don't do that. But what I will badmouth, potentially are different ways to approach the vCISO practice, right? Because I agree with you. A vCISO is what a typical CISO would do, which would be strategic direction, laying out plans, laying out the structure of the security program, how we're going to do things, and the actual doing things. You might be an IT person, might be some security staff. And I can only speak from my own experience recently, because I only have one client today, and that's a big, I don't know how many employees, maybe 50,000-ish. I don't know how large they are. And they even if they wanted to hire a CISO, at the time we started the engagement about 18 months ago, they weren't even mature enough to have a CISO yet.
That's a really good point too. Yeah. I don't know how to think about it. Having the maturity, I think that's we're really good at getting people from, 0 to 5, 6, 7. Yeah. And then that's when you can justify and say, okay, we need a full-time person.
Yeah. Cause then at that point, what you should be holding your CISO accountable for. They know what they should be doing. You can create a job description that actually fits the company as opposed to just taking some job description off the internet and putting your name on it. And you're right. There's such a good security staff at this company that all they need is some strategic direction here and there. I don't need to do much.
Just some accountability. Hey, you said these tasks were going to get done. I got to write it down. It's not done. When the board asks or whoever asks, I'm telling them the truth.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we try to do our vCISO service to scale down, but then also to scale up. And different, I think, experience levels of the consultants fit with that too, right?
Oh, yeah.
You wouldn't want to throw a junior, it's my first time being a CISO kind of person, at a 10,000 employee company.
Oh. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, right?
Oh, really?
No,
I'm just kidding.
Now you tell me.
Agreed.
Yeah. And so one of the things that, we did this vCISO service, we identified this as an issue probably, I don't know, probably more than that, but maybe 9 years ago. And so we had a service to fill this gap. Like I said, whenever there's a gap, somebody's going to fill it.
Right.
Something is always going to fill the gap. So we had this vCISO service, and the way we did it was you would just pay us a monthly fee, and we would serve as your vCISO. So what ended up happening is people would just pay $5,000 a month, and you weren't doing anything.
Yeah.
So it was only a couple years into that where we were like, this is not fixing the broken industry, which is our mission. Let's roll back. And so you go to clients and say, look, stop paying us $5,000 a month because you're not getting anything.
Right.
And then they would still pay you $5,000 a month because
no.
Yeah.
It's a security blanket.
Yeah. So we rolled it back, and then we redefined what a vCISO was for us, because what we needed in our vCISO program was something that the client could hold us accountable to as the CISO, and something that we could hold the client accountable to as the client, or as the, the company. So we developed this FACT system, which seems, I love what you guys have done with it since it was kind of originally released a couple of years ago.
Yeah, it was funny. So, I started in July of 16, and the FACT that came out in like October of 16.
Okay.
And then what it was from October till most of 17, it was still figuring it out to where it is now is, I'm pretty proud of what we do.
Well, I am too. Because
like just watching that growth and taking an idea, and then every single analyst, they are invested and are constantly, hey, I think we should do this, or here's what I'm doing to make things better. And like that constant sharing, that constant improvement. And it's pretty awesome to watch that. And
that's what's far exceeded my expectations, because what I did is I just created a framework, it's just, I was sitting, like, I'll never forget. I was sitting on the couch, it's like a chair that we have in our living room on a Saturday. And I was like, we got to figure this thing out now. Because it had been a couple of years since we rolled back the vCISO, and we just needed to provide something here. So it was a weekend. I threw something together. You guys took it, made it so much better than what it was, but it was just kind of kickstarting it, right?
Right. Yeah.
And so now the way the vCISO service works and it's the same way you would do it if you hired me off the street as your CISO.
Agreed.
The very first thing that I would do would be to do an assessment.
Honestly, though, that approach is what makes it so successful.
I agree.
Right? Every single one, we're like, okay, we're invested in the company, so let's do this the right way. Here's what we're going to do.
Right. Because that would be the first thing I would do, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I got to know what I'm working with. And you see that CIOs do the same thing, COOs do the same thing, CTOs do the same thing.
Right.
So it's like, okay, let's do an assessment. Well, let's use our flagship assessment that we've been using forever. It's evolved into something so awesome. So we use that S2.org, used to be called FRSecure.
Has that been announced, or are you just breaking news?
I don't know. You know me. I don't know.
I don't know if they've done like the full marketing fanfare. Well, now it's done.
Well, no, this ain't no.
It's on the website, so
yeah, it's not really fanfare. But so you start with the assessment, and then from the assessment, you build a roadmap. And from the roadmap, I mean, this is how simple it is. From the roadmap, you're assigning some things for the vCISO to do, and you're going to do some things.
Right. Yeah. We'll help you identify. Is it internal staff? Is it a MSP? Is it another partner? Is it
So then everybody knows who's responsible for what. Mm-hmm. And now we've got this accountability piece back and forth, because you can hold the CISO, the vCISO, accountable for his or her tasks. Mm-hmm. But then the vCISO can also hold you as the client accountable for your tasks.
Yeah, and I think what kind of differentiates us is we do it at a base level to start, right? So I've seen it. They're going to charge you X amount a month, regardless of what they're going to end up doing. Yeah, and we're like, no, we're going to start with, we know we're going to do these things regardless of what we find in the assessment. Regardless, you're going to get these services. Now, if you need additional, let us know what you want us to help with, and we'll work that out. But we're not charging people for, like you said, not doing anything.
I know.
Yeah.
So it's been, real successful, and I love what you guys have done with it. I think, as we go on the Security Studio Roadshow and start getting more people, sort of understanding how a vCISO program is supposed to work, it gets everybody on the same page, right? We're looking forward to, because we have to somehow defeat this fragmentation in the security industry, where you've got a billion different ways of doing something,
right,
without any kind of common ground.
Yeah, and what's funny is you'll hear that we've had customers that are now our FACT subscribers that are coming from other vCISO services, and we had one. They were subscribed. They were with them for 2 years and had 4 or 5 different vCISOs in 2 years. How do you have any continuity?
Right.
And they said every time they came in, they'd have to basically start over because everybody was just a little different.
Right.
Yeah.
When you got a system and a construct, in place, then you can switch out personnel and not have to redo things.
And obviously, everybody's going to have slightly different takes on things, but your experience as the customer is going to be the same. It's going to be the same meeting format. It's going to be the same approach. You're just going to get maybe a slightly different, background based on their experience.
Exactly. Yeah, so I think that's what makes a good vCISO. A good vCISO will treat the client like they are the actual CISO.
Yeah, and every one of our analysts absolutely does that.
I know they do. And
sometimes it's a little, we're like, oh, slow down. Like, calm yourself.
Yeah, being a little too ambitious here.
Yeah. Which is a good, by the way, I love having that problem.
I do too.
I'd rather have that than.
Rather reel them back a little bit than try to motivate them. It's like, dude.
Yeah, you're going to, yeah.
Move it. So if you're looking for a vCISO, and I'm going to ask you as objectively as possible, because we do vCISOs, but if you were a client, put yourself into the client's shoes, what would you demand from a vCISO?
I think you said like that accountability, not just for yourself, but what am I getting out of this? Right. Yeah. And I'll be honest, that is a hard thing to convey exactly what we're going to provide. Right. But we're honest and transparent and try to do that. So that's what I would look for is do you feel like you understand what you're going to get? Is it going to be consistent? Do they have a methodology, or is it just, hey, they slap some marketing on, this IT provider is now your security vCISO because they sell endpoint protection. Right. Or do they have, qualifications and certifications and the experience? Yeah.
Well, I think those are two things that I would look for if I was a CISO again, in the real job. Because we also have CISOs who hire vCISOs. Because a vCISO can make a CISO look good. Right? Doesn't have to be a...
And honestly, I like those.
I do too.
Because I've been in that position too, where you're the only one.
Yeah, help me out.
They're like, yeah, we're here on your behalf. We're going to support you. And it's a sanity check. It's a sounding board to bounce things off of. Yeah. Am I looking at this right? What am I missing here?
Oh, for sure.
All that.
When we all need that, right?
Yeah.
I mean...
Oh, all the time. I ask our analysts all the time that stuff.
Right. That was the call on Wednesday.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I initiated that one.
What's going on?
What am I looking at?
Right. Well, and so what I would look for a CISO or a vCISO would be, yes, definitely the accountability, because I want to know what I'm getting for my money. That's me. I want to know what I'm getting for my money, because I have to tell that to the board or the CEO.
How do I justify this expense?
Yeah.
Right. Here's what we're getting for it.
Yeah. And I'd want as much objectivity as possible.
Yeah.
And I'd want, like you said, somebody with experience, and I'd want somebody with consulting experience. And the reason why I'd want somebody with consulting experience is because a good consultant steals good ideas from all their clients.
Well, that's the benefit to go with a good consulting is you're going to get the best of everything we've seen.
Yeah. I mean, I learned so much from other clients. Like, oh my God, that's awesome.
Well,
I'm now making that mine.
Yeah. Well, not only that, you also learn what to look out for.
Right.
Which is one of the biggest struggles, I think, is people tend to get tunnel vision. You know your environment and know it works, but that doesn't mean that's the best way. We may have seen something somewhere else and we're like, oh, wait, no. You shouldn't be doing that this way. You need to tweak these things.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so and for listeners, if you want, if you're a security person who wants to know how to become a vCISO, because I think it's a great job, because you get to go from place to place. You don't carry the stress of being in it all day, every day, the same company.
There are some. It's not for everyone.
No.
The consulting thing, that we've had people that don't work out, who need to have, the corner office with the windows.
Yeah, that's probably not going to be right.
but we've seen it, and then they don't last.
No,
it's a very different thing, but absolutely rewarding.
Yeah, the one thing I like, the one client that I have, I've reminded them numerous times, that look, in about 2 hours, I'm going to get on an airplane,
right?
And I'm just being completely honest with you. I'm not going to think about you again until about an hour before our next meeting when I'm preparing for it.
Right.
And what I'm trying to stress there is not that I don't care about you, but that this is your security program.
Yeah.
Ownership.
I'm here to support you, but
right.
Ultimately, if something happens and you're not doing what we recommend, it's not my neck on the line.
Well, and that's also true, right? Here are my recommendations. If you choose not to accept those recommendations, I have no problem with that.
Right. You just need to know.
Because I wouldn't
it's not me.
Well, right. And I wouldn't have any problem with that if I was your CISO either.
Right.
These are business decisions. If the CEO or the business decides not to take my recommendations as their full-time CISO, don't take it personal. Document it, move on.
Right.
You've got other risks that are still there. All right. Anyway, so if you want to become a vCISO, what I would say, in whether it's working at FRSecure or working at some other company, give us a ring. I'd love to, because if you're looking at starting off in your own consulting practice or, whatever you want to do, if vCISO is something that you're interested in, I think both you and I would help them build something.
Let's just learn from.
There's so much business.
Learn from our mistakes. Oh yeah, there's no shortage of.
I'd rather collaborate and get people doing it in a similar way because the customers benefit from that, rather than let's all decide on our own methodology and confuse the crap out of everybody.
Right. Every time they switch. Yeah. Start all over. Oh.
All right. So. Last topic for today, the show, before we get into some news, something came up in a recent vCISO engagement. So this is the one customer that I was talking about. But it demonstrates gaps between what good guys can do in testing and what the bad guys can do in their actual compromises. There's always a gap. And the reason why there's a gap is because the good guys have rules. Right, there are boundaries. There's a line that we won't cross in terms of testing. So take like a pen test, for instance.
Yep.
A pen test has a scope. It has an objective. It has whatever. And even in red teaming exercises, there are certain things that we won't do.
Right.
That a bad guy doesn't care.
Has no hesitation.
I don't care what your boundaries and your objectives are and everything else in testing.
Right.
I'm going to find whatever way in I can find and do whatever I'm going to do. So, and there was one email that I got that demonstrates this, and I didn't get this email personally. A client got this email, but it demonstrates a line that we won't cross, but a bad guy doesn't mind at all. Care. So the email says the subject is respond ASAP, and there's nothing wrong with the subject line there in terms of it's not misspelled or anything.
No.
Then it goes into the body of the email. It says, someone asked me to kill you. For your information, I am not sending this message with my email address and internet service provider just in case you want to prove...
I know, it's hard to read.
Just in case you want to prove smart and stubborn. Excuse me. Anyways, I like someone like that because I will be so happy to put a bullet in your skull. My boys have been watching your steps for a few days. I am giving you a chance to live simply because my oracles show me that you don't have a hand in what you are accused of. You are to pay me $10,000 and I shall terminate the operation. After that, I will give you the info of the person that wants you dead. You could call the authority and have them do patrol in your area 24/7. That didn't stop me from hunting you and your loved ones down. We are invisible. Reply to this email address, and then there's an email address, trinity-gmail.com.
Yeah.
So you would not see a test phishing email come from FRSecure that said that.
Yeah, no, not so much.
And so this email was sent to the CFO. And so the CFO forwarded this email and actually asked, is this...
Should I be concerned?
Exactly. Now, we're security people. We speak a different language. If I were to see this email, I'd be like, whatever, delete it. I wouldn't even give it a second thought.
Right.
But not everybody speaks our language. A CFO forwarded this asking if this was legitimate and wanted to know how we should handle it, whether we should call the FBI, call the police. So we assume that, to us, it seems ludicrous.
Yeah.
But to some portion of the population out there, this is a legitimate email, and they're scared.
Right. Yeah, and part of it is also that it was that company that it came from. Look and see. Hey, you guys got to compromise, and did you know you're sending this stuff out? Right.
So that's And I just want to cover that quick. The fact that there's a gap because we can't test this, and so how do we have to communicate it somehow to let people know that these things are not legit, but it doesn't stop them from using some other tactic that is.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, that's tough because we can't. That's against all our moral code and everything we do. Like, you can't threaten someone during a test. That's
right. Well, and one of the things that Chris had Nagy, when I took his social engineering class out of Black Hat a few years ago, that was one thing that resonated with me. He said, always leave somebody better off for having met you. Mm-hmm. That was the rule. And so when you're doing your social engineering attack, that keeps you honest and not doing things like this, right? They won't feel better off for having met you.
No.
When you go to these extremes.
Yeah.
And I guess the point here is, is if you're a CISO, if you're a security manager, somebody who's responsible for information security, just understand that no matter how much testing you do, you're always going to have this gap. And so it goes back to risk elimination versus risk management.
Yeah. So good point on this. You get this, use it for training for your staff. Now, you can sanitize like the emails and who it's to and all that, but I would absolutely use it as, hey, this is what they're doing.
Right.
Just be aware of these are the tactics we are seeing.
Yeah. And this will be in the show notes too. I will sanitize or anonymize this and then put it into the show notes. All right. So on to news. We've got just 4 news things to cover today. The first one, we're still talking Capital One, still talking about, I think the reason being is it's so sort of unique how one person who appeared to be a legitimate user, that's me again, kind of turned rogue if they weren't already rogue, but caused all this damage, not just for Capital One, but for 30 other customers or 30 other companies. Wow. So this comes from Silicon Angle, and the title is Alleged Capital One Hacker Indicted for Hacking 30 Other Companies. So this is that Paige A. Thompson, who was a man, became a woman, and she is the alleged hacker behind the theft of more than 100 million customer records from Capital One, and she's been indicted with additional charges of 30 other companies. So this story will continue to sort of evolve. I haven't seen any notifications or breach notifications or announcements from these 30 other companies. I haven't actually read the indictment. I don't know. Is it unsealed? It's got to be if they're talking
probably.
This. I don't know if those companies are mentioned in the indictment or not, but do some research.
It says in there they haven't been identified.
Okay.
Here's the joy. I'm reading it right now as we go.
Well, yeah, so am I.
I thought I saw something.
Where did you
Justice Department did not reveal the company's hacked.
Okay. So
state agency out of the state of Washington, telecom conglomerate outside the U.S., and a public research university outside of the state of Washington. So it does line up with companies speculated: Unicredit, Vodafone, Ford Motor,
yeah,
Michigan State, and Ohio Department of Transportation are speculated.
Yeah. So keep your eye out on this one. There's much more to come.
Yep.
On this story. All right. Well, that's really all I had to cover on that particular one. I thought it was interesting just because it's not dying out. Ransomware gang breached data backup software used by hundreds of U.S. dental offices. I don't go to dentist. Do you go to the dentist?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you got nice teeth.
Yeah.
I still have most of my teeth. All right. So there's a gang of ransomware attackers who are going after FRSecure. This story comes from TNW, which is thenextweb.com. The title is Ransomware Gang Breached Data Backup Software Used by Hundreds of U.S. Dental Offices. I think it's interesting because they're targeting specific software now.
They've identified a weakness and are targeting it.
Yep. And so taking down then the software itself, which would then essentially render the dentist office inoperable because they won't be able to get to the dentist records and process, payments and everything else. So 2 Wisconsin-based software companies have been targeted. One is PerkSoft and the other is Digital Dental Record, DDR. They provide a solution called DDS Safe that delivers triple-layer protection. Triple-layer.
So
that sounds really sophisticated.
So
I wonder if it's got AI and blockchain. Probably.
If you look at it, if done right, that's actually what you should be doing. I guess that was poor implementation.
Yeah, totally poor implementation.
So the triple layer is sensitive records to the cloud, to an offline workstation, and an in-office hard drive. So they've got 3 levels. But if they're able to encrypt all 3, then something wasn't done right.
Well, and they're going through, I think, the DDR Safe solution itself, right?
Yeah. So
So they're going through the actual.
I can see where those companies would be. I mean, if you just saw that, yes, that's a good solution.
Right.
Poorly implemented.
Yeah. So I would assume, did they close the vulnerability? I don't think they have yet. I don't see anything.
It just says that
the alert
remediation efforts continue.
Yeah. Roughly 400 dental practices across the country are affected by the vulnerability in the DDS Safe. And they've had their files locked out by ransomware. The ransomware itself is REvil. So
let's see. So they do say they have a decryption tool for it. So that's good, but man.
Yeah. Well, it's the method, I think, that is sort of the most sort of newsworthy.
I will say this: there's one thing in there. It mentions a link to ProPublica investigation, how insurance companies are fueling rise of ransomware threats by covering the cost.
I know. That's a whole other story.
I'm so glad to see that being called out, though.
Absolutely.
So,
yeah. I'm not happy about that. Actually, at Hacks and Hops, when we have, I forgot his name. I apologize for that. But the locked-in cyber
guy,
insurance, that's a good question to ask him in the panel.
Yeah.
All right. Next one, top reasons businesses make a cyber insurance claim. What do you think it is? What's the top reason? You looking at it, but if you were to guess this before.
I would say ransomware is going to be number 1.
Okay.
And then I just looked at it, but I would have said probably ransomware or email compromise would be the top 2 for sure. And they are.
Yeah.
It was backwards from my thought, but absolutely that would be the top 2 without question.
Yeah. So from Bitdefender, the title is the top reason businesses make a cyber insurance claim. And number 1 is business and email compromise. 23% of all cyber insurance claims received by AIG, which is a big insurer, are business email compromise.
Thinking about it, it makes sense. It's a really easy thing to compromise, and it's not cheap to validate and clean, right? So we had one earlier this year. It ended up being about 75 hours to fully understand the breadth of what happened and do the full investigation and all the resets and all that. And users click on stuff all the time.
Oh, yeah. No, it's not surprising at all.
Yeah.
Number 2 is ransomware. Number 3, data breach by hackers. Number 4, data breach. And number 3 and 4 are tied. Data breach due to employee negligence.
Yeah. I can see that.
Yeah, it's interesting how I'd want to know, and I guess I'll have to read the study more, specifically how you define these.
Yeah, they do have the Sydney data to the wrong person, so they're going to have to file a claim for covering fines or whatever.
Yeah. But interesting article
Yeah.
On the insurance front. Interesting stuff. All right. The last news article I have is this Google Play app's ticking malware time bomb just exploded, leaving 100 million people at risk. This comes from Hot Hardware. I've never been to this site before. It's probably just been phished.
Yep. Thanks.
Yeah, whatever. Actually, funny. Look, malicious ad.
Oh, there you go.
I just went to the website on this on my iPad.
See, but I have Firefox with a bunch of plugins, so I didn't get it.
No, it's whatever, man. It's just a malicious ad. Like I don't get those. All
I just flat blocked them.
All right, so the yeah. Well,
I'm telling you, it's been a long couple of weeks. Getting a little punchy.
So this is the trouble in the Google Play Store. Surprise, surprise. And this is just because of the open source nature or the open access nature of the Google Play Store, right? It's not like the Apple Store where things have to be vetted so much. But a threat comes called Cam Scanner, which is a popular app, I suppose. I don't use Android.
Yeah. Well, I do, but I don't have that one, thankfully.
But it allows you to create PDF documents using OCR technology, optical character recognition, developed by a Chinese firm called CC Intelligence. I would not trust a Chinese firm called CC Intelligence.
Right. I'm reading that and I'm going, well, I guess I'm, just not normal because I'm really careful about what I actually install.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway.
Yeah, you're a security guy.
Yeah, I don't think normal.
So anyway, this compromises the system or the Android device, whatever Android device installs it. It's been downloaded a total of 100 million times since it was initially released.
Yeah.
Trojan Dropper Android OS.necro.
By the way, I can't wait for one of the team to listen to this and isolate my comment of I don't think normal and use that against me. So I know that's coming.
Of course it is. All right. So anyway, how do you stop yourself from this? Well, one, only use apps that you've vetted, right? Don't just download things
and there are legitimately good or good being relative, I guess. Protection software, antivirus or scanners that you can put on your phone. The big name players use, have them. I have one on mine and I've downloaded I'll admit what I thought was a legitimate or a good looking app, and it throws up the warning before it does the install of, or was trying to do the install of, did you know it was trying to do these things? And I'm like, whoa, that's not what it said it was doing. Nope, delete.
Right.
And it's caught, so there are good ones out there. I'm not going to name names, but if you got Android, put something like, and a big name. Like, don't just pick some random whatever.
Right.
There's some good ones out there.
Yeah, and that should be a basic protection for any Android device, is to have malware, anti-malware
that was
installed.
The first thing I did on my, on this phone, on my daughter's phone, on my wife's phone.
And then also recognize that will only be a mitigating control.
Oh, it's not perfect by any means.
Right. You'll still have to practice good discernment, especially in Android devices. You have to be a little more sophisticated. You have to do a little more research.
Yeah.
You have to be a little more careful.
Yep.
iOS is a fairly closed ecosystem, and even that's not completely.
No. Yeah. I'm willing to trade that off for the flexibility.
Well, yeah.
Just because
That's because you're a geek.
I'm
I'm
not normal. There you go, guys.
It's good to be a geek, man. I'd wear that badge with honor if I were.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Well, that's the end of the show. That's how it is. Another episode in the bag. Brad, nice job. Even though for Friday with 15 minutes of preparation for the show, you did good.
It's funny. I was talking with Ben after he did the one, and he's like, "How do you guys do that?" I'm like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "Those aren't show notes. That's like an outline." I'm like, "Yeah, no, that's all we do. We just talk. Right. That's all we need. This is fun."
I like talking with you, man. All right. So and that leads to my next comment. It is a pleasure. Always a pleasure spending an hour with you talking security, man. Special thanks to our listeners. Keep up the good comments. We do appreciate them. Send them to unsecurity@protonmail.com. We do read them, and I have some ideas on how on some future shows based on what they've.
Yeah, I finally bookmarked it on my computer, so I check it more regularly now. Not when I just like, I should check that. Now I actually am checking it out on a regular basis.
Nice. We do have some great episodes to come in the future. If you are a social type, socialize with us on Twitter.
Yeah.
I'm at Evan Francine, and Brad's at Brad Nye. Brad's, it's not just N-I or N-Y or N-Y-E, it's N-I-G-H. So BRADNIGH. And I'm not going to spell my name for you.
Well, you're an author. You don't have to.
Oh, that's right. I'm super important. Okay. Talk to you next week.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the UNSECURITY podcast. We value our listeners and would love to hear from you. Give us your feedback by emailing us at unsecurity@protonmail.com. That's unsecurity@protonmail.com. Be sure to tune in next week to hear the latest insights from Brad and Evan.